Hello? Hi, dude. Welcome to my first stream. You can see I actually have the welcome card up in Krita. And I'm going to go ahead and switch to something new. And since it's my first stream, I mainly just want to doodle a bit and play around and not worry too much about what I'm drawing tonight. I'm going to also be fussing a little bit with things to try to get them set up the way that I want them to be set up. And that includes setting up my chat presence. Like so. Hello. All vibes, that's right. Just nothing but mood and vibes. And maybe some audio peculiarities that I'll need to work through, such as a buzz on my mic. Probably need to switch out the XLR cable. Very quiet right now. Okay, well, let's fix that. That's actually very easily fixed by turning up my gain, like so. Hopefully that fixed it a bit. Maybe you can tell me if I sound a bit better. Maybe if I turn it up like this. Okay. Well, my volume meter says that it's at a pretty good height right now, so I'm going to go with that. Good. Excellent. Start with some deep breaths. And maybe some light colors. Just some circles. I could even put on some of those rain sounds that I was talking about. You can tell me if maybe that's a little bit too loud. If I'm competing too much with it, I can turn it back down. And just have some soothing time. And yes, dude, if you go to sleep, that's perfectly fine. It should just be very mellow in the background. this background sound to just be soothing, comforting, maybe like a time that you were waiting in the car for someone, or maybe you were just parked somewhere and you just wanted to listen to the rain for a few minutes. That's very much me, by the way. There's lots of times in my life where I've simply driven somewhere in a storm, whether it's by the ocean, or it was just somewhere near where I lived, and just listened to the rain. Just dropping on the car, just like this. Maybe there's a lot of things going on in your life. And I think it's really important to find little times like that for yourself. I grew up by the ocean. Well, near to it. Not very far. And I would sometimes just drive down during a storm, or when I knew the waves were high, even at night, just let the world melt. And I feel like I want to paint in blues because I've been talking about the ocean. And I grew up on the Pacific coast. And down at the ocean, sometimes there would be big waves. And the beaches, almost always this golden shade of brown. Almost everywhere I've gone. With the kelp floating in rafts, and sometimes I'd see an otter. Because I have a wandering mind, I'll tell you a story about a time that I bought a drone and I wanted to take some video of otter. But I was a little bit too bold. And I flew a little too low, and I think I scared them. But I didn't know that I was scaring them. And I posted a video, and a marine biologist reached out to me and said, "Hey, I think those otters are scared." I said, "Oh, really?" And I took the video down because I didn't want to encourage anybody else to do what I was doing. And I thought that was the right thing to do. And that biologist got in touch with me and told me that they were really impressed with the fact that I showed that kind of responsibility. And I said, "Oh, of course. I had never wanted to disturb any wildlife." And they said that they were going to do a conference about the marine sanctuary nearby, and asked if I wanted to join them and talk about operating drones and safety and taking photography of wildlife. And I was actually pretty excited about it. So I went, and I met a lot of really cool people from the California parks. Some biologists listened to their research. Some photographers talked about what they were doing. And there was even someone there with a drone who was showing what it could do. And I showed people my video and said this is an example of what not to do, because the wildlife were somewhat stressed by what I was doing. And that kicked off a few different talks that I did in different places about responsible drone flying and photography. And it was pretty wonderful, because even though it started as a thing that was incautious, I think that it showed that even people with good intentions can stand to learn about how they impact the world. I continued flying my drones for a few years until the regulations got pretty stiff. And I stopped doing that. I thought I was going to go to pilot school for a little while and maybe get a certification, but it turned out that that was a little bit too expensive. Although I did take some really wonderful flying lessons, and I got to co-pilot a Cessna around the Golden Gate Bridge, San Francisco, and that was really fun. It's funny where my mind wanders while I paint. Thinking about being in the air. There was one time that I even got airsick while I was piloting. I didn't realize how much I would just be telling stories, and I guess I love telling stories. Yeah, dude. It was a pretty incredible time. I'm lucky to live in such a wonderful place where I have all these opportunities to try things. I've gotten to try a lot of things in my life. It's been really wonderful. Of the soul. Paintings are a photo of the soul. Makes sense. Mind wanders while showing your soul. Yeah. I think it's wonderful to just sometimes paint without an idea in mind and just see what wants to come up. You know, it's funny, it's not something somebody usually wishes for, but I almost wish I was out in a boat in the storm, on a smaller boat, to have that experience sometimes. I've certainly been on big boats in the storm. I was on a boat in the sea near Finland, near Helsinki, when it got really stormy. And I got to take some cool video of the surf breaking near the boat. I've also been, when I was really young, on a cruise ship down near the Bermuda Triangle, of all places, in a big storm. I've gotten to sail on a small boat before, helping to crew. I was in the San Francisco Bay with a friend who owned a boat. And that was really very cool because I got to not only learn how to crew on a sailboat, but I got to sleep overnight on it, and I had such a good sound sleep. And the skipper was nice enough to just take over all the duties overnight with my friend, who was very experienced. And just sail me to sleep, I guess. A core memory. I was out on a boat near Madagascar in a small boat. It's like a outrigger canoe they called a pirogue. And it was just two skippers, my partner at the time, and it was just dead water for a while we were trying to sail back before daylight faded. But there was no, I said dead water, I mean there was some dead wind, so we got stuck for a long time, and it started to get dark. Everybody was a little nervous. But we did end up making it back, and it did get dark before we got back, so it was a little dangerous. And it gave me a rare chance to see some bioluminescence, because I put my hand in the water, and this fantastic blue wake, just gleaming, just streamed away behind the boat from where my hand was trailing. The two skippers were desperately trying to man things and find the harbor, and I had nothing to do but enjoy this gentle moment. Very interesting experience, because we could have ended up being hammerhead shark food if we had tipped over out there, but somehow I found a place of peace with what I was experiencing. These would be some awfully big pieces of kelp if they were kelp, so I think that they are just abstract representations, of course. This bit of bright green, I think I'm going to use more of it. Given who I know you, yes. I live in, dude knows me from Discord well enough to know that I tend to just vibe in the strangest times. And I think that might be a gift. I've been told I'm quirky. I'm very happy with that label. I tend to live in the moment when things are abnormal. My eyes and senses feel like they're opening. Seeing things for what they are. It's true. Yeah. And so I guess it goes without saying that sometimes the mundane is what I struggle with. And I used to volunteer at a hospital where things sometimes got very chaotic. And of course, like a lot of people who work in that situation, I just kind of found a flow and I went with it. But there were times when it seemed like time stood still. And this is the part of the stream where I am going to break from ASMR and say some things that, or I would say, I saw dead people there. It's so fun to say. It's totally not ASMR to talk about dead people. But this isn't technically an ASMR stream. But there were a few people who passed away there. And I remember that it was different than I would have expected. And I don't even have to go into, lurid detail about it. But the whole feeling around it, the way the nurses reacted, the curiousness of it, of this sort of feeling of reflection on life, how frail and precious it is. I believe that was the first time I had seen that. And it wasn't even, I would say, every time that it happened afterwards. Because it did happen a few other times and in different places in my life. I learned something different every time. Sometimes it was more personal to me. Sometimes it was a person that I knew and admired, like my grandmother. And sometimes it was somebody I really didn't like very much, but I suddenly felt some strange connection to them, and even happiness that they had found some peace. So we can move topics. I suppose, in an absence of input, my mind just goes to experiences. Places sometimes I had forgotten about. Thoughts I had left unfinished. Oh, dude, it was not, it wasn't hard on me because, in any of those circumstances, because it was something I felt like I was meant to experience. For a long time in my life, I didn't really believe in there being a purpose or meaning behind things. And I still stop short of trying to ascribe meaning to things that I am in awe of or don't understand. But in all those cases, I felt like I'm supposed to be right here, and I'm supposed to learn something from this. And whether I was destined to explore that in a YouTube stream, I don't know. But I've never been shy about talking about things that I thought were meaningful, even if they are sometimes hard. I don't know. Like I said before, I think my sense of peace comes most in the unusual or the meaningful times. It's like an angelic being just circling its wings around you, comforting you, and elevating you to a place of understanding that you didn't know was possible until you experienced it. There was a time when I was a teenager and I was out bodyboarding in the ocean in the Pacific, and I got caught in a riptide, and it pulled me way out. And I thought, this might be how I die. And I think I realized at that moment that I definitely didn't feel like as panicked as I thought I would. And I didn't feel like, oh, I haven't lived enough or anything like that. And obviously I made it back. And I was with some other people and made sure that everybody got back in. And I remember this really muscle-covered rock was the first thing that I grabbed onto. And I cut my legs up, my shins up on it. And I didn't feel it because my legs were numb at that point. I'd been out in the water for a little while. But that muscle-covered rock just felt like salvation, and it felt like once I touched it, the initial experience was over. And I was on to a different experience now. I think about it sometimes, and I think about how I'll never be worried that I didn't live enough. And that was like a gift. Yeah, I don't like that big splotch I put there. Let's fix that. I think I want to put some twisty shapes in here. Get the impression something is floating. You know, I don't like swimming in rivers or lakes, even though ostensibly you would think that they would be safer. No sharks, no waves, no riptides. But that's probably multifactorial in my case. Um, I think I had some experiences with being in distress in some freshwater swimming situations that I just didn't have until I was a little bit older in the ocean, so I couldn't contextualize them, but they probably stuck with me. And also just some creepy movies regarding people on rafts. You may be able to guess the movies I saw when I was young. One of them started with the sea and ended with Reap Show. And I think I saw that just a little bit too young. And thought there were monsters in every lake waiting to get you. But even to this day, I just, as soon as I get into a lake or a river, if I'm hiking, I think I'm compelled by feeling sweaty and hot to get in, but then I want to get back out pretty quick. I definitely don't want to play around too long. Not because of the temperature or anything else, just thinking about, oh, the weird stuff that must be in lakes. And I'm not even talking about pollution or microbes or anything like that. Just tend to not like it. But the ocean? You watched Jaws once and said screw water as a kid. Yeah, it was funny. I was in the ocean. I'd always thought, a shark could just eat me right now. And somehow never really bothered me. I was just like, yeah, I could also get hit by a car. While I'm on the land, why am I going to worry about this so much? I guess it's really what, you get exposed to early on, where your phobias and fears are developed from. They affect you the rest of your life. Time goes so fast while I'm painting and yapping. I hardly even notice it. Let's add more wispy streams of things. And I promise that I will not add a big shark. I think that I would be spooked if a big whale or something did come up, even though I know in my rational mind that the whale probably wouldn't hurt me. I know some people have had encounters with whales where it was a bit dangerous because of getting tumbled or smacked by a whale tail and things like that, but I think the thing that would freak me out a little bit is just something really big underneath me in the water. But who knows? Maybe my sense of wonder would be awakened again. And I would feel that angel there saying, pay attention. You're going to learn something right now. Whales are so cute. They are. Maybe one day we'll get to talk to whales. Speak their language. That would be wonderful. I don't know if you could ever translate, really, but it'd be wonderful to know the sentiment. To know what is enough between whales to say. I would love to learn what is enough to a whale. Talking to whales was found out in Finding Nemo. Oh, is it so true? How could I be? How could I not reference current and relevant material this way? Hmm. This looks like an overcast day. It's definitely the kind of day you'd see surfers out. Might even be raining. Being in the rain in the ocean is just a magic experience, I think. You just feel like the water is just alive. The water is being stirred. Provided the waves aren't trying to pull you under. You know, it's funny, I grew up in California, but I never learned how to actually properly surf. I feel like it's a crime. Maybe that's one I could remedy at some point, but I had a guy I went out early in the morning with who was willing to teach me. This is in Southern California. But I never managed to get up on the board, and we just basically stopped being acquaintances not too long after. Life just kind of took its course. Oh, I like this color for the shallow water. Let's put an overlay on so I don't disturb so much of the texture. Never learned how to swim. Yeah. I know some people here in California who never learned how to swim. They didn't take their license to live in California away. I guess my lighting doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense in some of these places. Looks so serene. This looks like an excellent shower curtain pattern. Swim trunk colors. I have some swim trunks that are kind of these colors, actually. Just soften some of the rays a little bit. I kind of like this. Whoa, that was dramatic. I'm still on an overlay. I worked with my airbrush a little bit. You have swim trunks that are exactly these colors. Good colors for swim trunks. No. I think it would be better if the sky was a little brighter down near the horizon. I gave some deeper hues down here. Some more evidence of shadow. I think for my first stream, I should just keep it kind of short and sweet. Maybe just give some nice messages. Say, I'm very happy you joined me. I'm very happy for those who followed me on this journey. Maybe you're watching later. Listen to me tell stories. Paint some surf. I hope you have peace in your heart. Remember to take deep breaths. Drink your water. Take care of yourself. You're worth it. You're worth every minute of your life. and to other people you may not even know. You are worth so much being in this world in ways you may never fully understand. We're all connected in a beautiful way. We need to remember to be kind to each other. And at the strangest of times, look for things that'll help us for the rest of our lives. I'm sending my love. And I wish you all a very pleasant night.